Hey there, it's Justin Krane. I'm a certified financial planner professional and money strategist for business owners. What do? I teach people how to unite their money with their life and their business. Today on Dov Barron's podcast, Leadership and Loyalty Show, I'm going to talk about how you can get real serious about what you want out of your life, what you want to accomplish, and how you could use your money to fund those goals. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Barron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Barron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Barron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to be taking a look at how to unite your money, your life, and your business. If you're a new listener, a new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we're also very grateful to Inc.com for making us the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. You know, we really appreciate that, and we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and tell your friends to do the same. All right, let's dive right in, strip it down, and get into it. As a leader, you know, whether you are a CEO, a C-suite leader, a sales leader, or an entrepreneur, or a leader in any capacity, that we are all working longer and harder than we've ever done before. But what are we working for? Well, our guest today says that we're actually working to unite our money, our life, and our business. He says that financial advisors only focus on personal money, CPAs focus on tax planning, and he is bridging the gap between your business and your personal money. Now, here's the problem. Even if you know what your accountant does, you might even know what your financial advisor does. But our guest today says, do you know what they don't do, and the consequences of what they don't do, and what those consequences might be on you, on your family, and on your future, and of course, your finances? Well, stay tuned, because you're about to find out. Our guest today is Justin Krane. Justin Krane is a frequent guest on MSNBC. He's a money strategist for business owners. He helps you understand the money side of your business. Justin isn't just about cutting back and living frugally. God knows you can find plenty of those guys who'll help you out with that. He's about getting the shoes you want, doing the sushi, and living your best life, and saving for your future. He's also the author of Money, a brand new book called Money, You Got This. Justin is a certified financial planning professional, and as I said, he's featured on CBS, Fox Business News, and MSNBC. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Justin Krane!
That's right. Hey, Dov, thank you for having me. I've listened to your show. I love it. I'm so psyched to be here with you today.
We're really glad to have you. This is fabulous. And thank you for tuning in yourself. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate all of you tune in and share the show with everybody you know. So I just did the bio, but
yeah,
let's get into this. Who is Justin Krane? What makes you tick?
Well, the bottom line is I got two
easy
businesses.
Questions, huh?
Yeah. I just believe in expansion. I believe in growing, in being a leader, being authentic, and really taking a look at, like, what are you doing in business? What are you meant to do? What are you called to do? What do you want to get more of? And let's expand and get more of that, rather than being like poverty thinkers, freaking out and all of that. Let's use our business. Let's use our human capital, right? Let's use what we're good at to create a financial life that we want for ourselves today. Not like when you're 82. Like, I'm talking now. We got to get this thing going now.
Right. Now, one of the things you said is you reading in your thing that one of the things you have I might phrase it a little differently because I'm a little more blunt, but you said it's get your head out of the sand day. That's
Oh
how you
yeah,
start with your clients. Tell us a little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
about that.
Today is National Get Your Head Out of the Sand Day. Everyone listening, it is official. You've got to get your head out of the sand. So here's the deal. If you don't know what you don't know, how can you make your financial life better? It's kind of like if you can't see it, if it's not broke, then you don't know how to fix it. And
Hmm.
part of this whole thing about prosperity thinking, about believing that you can create and manifest the financial life that you want, and being a great leader is being aware of what the hell is going on with your money and what you need to do differently to get a different result.
Do you think that most people even understand that? I mean, because there's, I mean, it's one of the things I've said to people for. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I was working with a client, and a lady. She was doing very well in her life. She was very successful, and something came up, and I said, really, we need your husband in here as well. I need to get both sides of this. And she said, "Oh, my husband won't come." And I said, "Well, why not?" And she said, "He's a dentist." And I was like, "Yeah, what does that got to do with anything?" And she said, "Well, he thinks he's just too smart for this." And I'm like, "Okay, so he has his certifications, his degrees, his medicals, whatever it is, to become a dentist, and he thinks he understands the psychology of relationships. He thinks he understands
Yeah,
how
right.
to make his relationships work while he's running a business, all those kinds of things." And I think that that's part of the mentality we have, particularly as leaders, is because old school, that we're supposed to know everything, and there's a great deal of assumption that I understand money because I'm a CEO or I'm a CF. Well, yes, certainly if I'm a CFO, but I'm a CMO or a CIO. That I understand money at a personal level, not just at a business level. Do you think that that's part of the challenge? Is that where people's heads in the sand?
Yeah, I think some people think that they already know it, but it's totally different when you're looking at your own stuff and you can't even see the hump on your own back.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to you got to take a step back. And as a leader, you have to be open to being led by other people in areas that you just, it's not your day job. It's, I can relate to that because, like, let me tell you, I've worked with husbands and wives, and the wife has said, we got to cut back on spending. We got to cut back on spending. And I look at their numbers and all that. And then the husband comes in with the wife. I'm like, you guys may want to cut back on a few things. And she looks at the husband. She's like, I've been telling you that for 10 years, right? The husband never listens to the wife, but he had to hear it from
Sure.
someone else, a
Yeah.
trusted advisor. And then
Yeah.
he was able to hear that and then implement and run with it.
Yeah. There's an old saying in the speaking world. I've mentioned it many times on my shows, and that is, a wise man is a fool in his own village, and a complete freaking idiot in his own home. Uh, or her home,
Totally.
own home. And what that simply means is that sometimes you do need to hear the same words from somebody else who you don't think is trying to control you. And I think that that's part of what it is. The reason our kids don't listen to us is because you're my dad, you're trying to control me. You're my mom, you're trying to control me. But if that person says it, well, they're brilliant.
I know, man. Like, we don't have any agenda, but like the parents, right? The
Yeah, there's an
spouses, they
agenda,
think
right?
we have some like crazy agenda.
Right. So that's a big part of it. You say
Yeah,
that you're the anti-fluff money strategist. Tell us what you mean
yeah,
by that.
yeah. I mean, there's so many like money coaches, woo-woo people that are like, everything's gonna be okay. We're gonna sail off in our white unicorn and eat strawberry caviar, and everything's gonna be fine, and blah blah blah. And like, you just have to like think and pray, and the money's gonna fall out from the sky. Like, I'm sorry, that's not the way it goes. Like,
Oh, come
well,
on, really? I'm so
yes,
disappointed.
I know.
And
Like,
I've spent so much time dreaming of unicorns and
you
strawberry caviar.
know, you got to get real with your money. And I'm talking real strategies that you can implement and build off of. Like
Hmm.
real stuff. Like if you're a business owner, it could be your ROI on marketing. You could be throwing money away there, right?
Hmm.
And the woo-woo money coaches will see like, just put it out there. You're called to do this, and whatever you say is going to work, and blah blah blah. But I'm saying, okay, it's important to invest in marketing, but what about tracking? Because remember, it's National Get Your Head Out of the Sand Day. So you got to track what you're doing. And if you don't look at the numbers and things keep stinking, well, a lot of things are going to happen. You're never going to get out of debt. You're never going to save the money that you want. You're not going to be happy financially, and you're going to feel stuck. Even if you're making $1 million a year, you could still be financially stuck.
Yes. And actually, you brought up a great point there, and I want to jump into that. Many years ago, a very good friend of mine moved from here, and he moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And we were talking afterwards, and I said, where were you living? He was telling me about this beautiful place he was living, and he was renting this fabulous house. And he goes, yeah, he said it was fascinating because everybody around him, they drove Porsches and Maseratis and all these kinds of things, and he called them $10,000 millionaires. And I said, well, what do you mean a $10,000 millionaire? He goes, many of them are doing $1 million in sales. Some of them are making 500K as an executive, but they were deeply in debt. And, they were leasing everything, including their own furniture. So aside from image and ego, how does this happen? How does this happen for somebody who's making $500,000 a year, or sometimes even more?
Well, I'm going to give you my answer, and I think
Sure.
you can. I think you can one up me because this is what, Dove, that you are so good at. Because I've listened to you, we've talked. You've talked with other people. Here's what I see: it's the relationship that they have with themselves, which has something to do with their own money story about how they were brought up as kids, the lessons they learned with their parents, and it's something around the idea of people say, I'm great at making money, I just don't know what to do with it. And I think it has to do with their own self-worth,
Sure.
with their feeling like, you know what, I deserve to have, $100,000 in the bank or whatever the number is. They feel like they don't deserve to have it, so they're just going to spend it. And from there, it just breaks down. I mean, I know you've talked about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, there's ego, there's image, and of course there's the original money story that the person's got. But from a sort of practical, tactical position, what's the biggest mistake people are making when it comes to, they're making very good money. They're bringing in, like I said,
Yeah.
could be 500,000, maybe more a year in income. What's the biggest
Yeah.
mistake they're making, Justin? I mean, because
Yeah.
somebody else who's making 60, 70, even 200 grand a year goes, oh my God, how are you broke? I don't understand. You're
Yeah.
making $1 million
Yeah.
a year. What's the
Yeah.
biggest practical mistake they're making?
Yeah, we've all heard it before. It has to do with automation and paying yourself first, or putting your profits in your business first, putting that aside, and then working with everything that you have left.
Right,
It's that simple. Is you have to put on your oxygen mask first to get
right,
yourself either out of debt or to increase your savings or any financial priority you have. You have to take the money off the top, not on the back end. Here's an example, because you
yeah,
asked
please.
about like accountants and bookkeepers and all that. Like accountants, they're great, but their job really is to save us money with taxes. So
Sure,
they may say, hey, you should put in $50,000 in your SEP IRA or your 401k. You can save 20 grand and all of that. But they might not know our real goal, which may be to get out of debt, to
right,
save for our kids' college. That might be more important.
right.
To save for a down payment on a house, to start a new business. See,
Mm-hmm,
they're very focused on the narrow of just saving money with taxes. But what
mm-hmm.
about all these other things that we want to do that may be more important than saving money for taxes? Like I work with one woman and I'm like, don't put money in your 401k. Take that money and put it in the bank so that you can adopt a kid. And she
Wow.
did that for 2 years. No, and I've seen this kid now on Facebook and all that. I'm like, wow, that's financial planning. That's the real stuff.
So financial planning, from your point of view, is not about just saving on taxes. It's actually, I mean, this is one of the things you and I talked about before we recorded. But financial planning is planning for what really matters to you. Talk to us a little
Correct.
bit about that.
I call it return on life.
I love
And
that, by
I
the
think,
way. When you and I
yeah,
spoke about that before, because
yeah,
all of us in business talk about ROI, but you talk about
yeah.
ROL, return on life. This is great. Please continue.
think, we're even recording this on a very, very historic day, right? Today is a very,
Yeah.
very historic day for America. And it was a day for me that really changed my life, even though I wasn't in New York when 9/11 happened. And I wasn't even affected to the extent that people who live there were.
Of
But
course.
we all have some moment in our life where we had to just a reframe, and it's like a breast cancer survivor or something like that. We begin to think, you know what, I need to live a little bit more for now. I need to
Hmm.
get really clear on what I want now. But so many of us don't even know what we want. We don't even know what we want. So I ask a few questions to clients and just business people to get them clear on, well, what is it that I really want? Because a lot of us, once we kind of make it in business, like we buy the house, we have our kids and all of that, it's like, now what? Like, now where do
Exactly.
we go from here?
Yeah.
So I like to ask, if you had all the money in the world, like all of the money in the world, what would you do? And then people say, like, all right, I'd pay down debt, I'd buy a car, I'd save for retirement. I'm like, okay, you now have another $5 billion. What would you do?
Hmm.
That's what really drives people to that return on life question. I mean, think about that.
Yeah. I think that we live in a world that tells us we're going to be better with money, and we live in a material world, and to some degree, there is a level of truth to that, of course. Life is going to move a lot smoother if you're not feeling financial stress. I get that. Um, but I think you've said something that's vitally important and very often missed is, I've said before, if we walk around the mall with a clipboard and ask people, what do you want? Most people's first response is, um, is that blankness.
Yeah.
And then they'll come up with something that is usually material, that is usually, as you said, to pay down debt or whatever it might be. But people don't genuinely know what they want. So tell us how you approach that. How do you approach when, because you're talking about it from the financial side.
Hmm.
How do you help people to get to what they want when they don't know what they want? It's a fascinating piece.
That is the $64 question. If
Right.
people can't answer that, ultimately they will, but I'll just go one level deeper. And I'll
Hmm.
say, if you go to the doctor and he says you have 5 to 10 years to live, but you don't know when you will die, what would you do?
Right.
And that's a powerful one, because
Hmm.
you really got to get clear on what you want to do in this next 5 to 10 years with a limited amount of time and what your priorities are. And a lot of people they'll give me the blank stare, but ultimately I'll force them, because I'm not going to retreat from this. I'll
Right.
politely ask them, like, okay, really think about this. What is it that you really want?
Yeah.
And then these answers, Dove, I get are so powerful and so real and so inspiring and so meaningful that once we're clear on what those are, then the financial decisions, they're like so much easier to make. And that's where the other trusted advisors, like an attorney, a CPA, a bookkeeper, they're in the weeds, they're in the details. Like, if you're putting a puzzle together, they're putting the pieces together on the
Hmm.
puzzle sometimes. And I'm talking about the picture of the cover of the box.
Right.
That's really important. That's where we can really get clear on figuring out what it is we want to do.
So you brought up something that's important. You said to get clear. So talk to us about financial clarity. What do you mean by that? Because from our previous conversation, I really get that you have a different way of understanding financial clarity from the CPAs, from the financial advisor, from whoever that might be. How do you see financial clarity?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like two simple numbers that we need to know. Is one is what is our monthly nut? And then what are that means what are your monthly expenses? And
Yep.
then what are you bringing in from your business or as an exec, CEO, whatever, after taxes? If you just know those two numbers, then you're able to, that's step one with financial clarity. I mean, I can go deeper, but
Of course.
we got to figure out, again, it's National Get Your Head of the Sand Day. You got to know those two numbers.
And okay, so let's get nitty gritty.
Yes.
So you meet with Charlie or Susie or whoever it might be, and they say, "Listen, my nut is I've got a business, I'm running a business, or, let's say we've got a decent entrepreneur. I'm
Hmm.
running a business, I'm heavily invested in my business. My nut for that business is 15, 20K a month, but I'm only bringing in 10K a month. And I know this business is going to take off. Every indication is genuinely pointing in that direction. But each month is a little bit,
Yeah.
a significant bit below that target. What's the for them?
Um, you know, Initially you would think, oh, just spend $10,000 less in business and you're fine, right? But
That's
it
not
may
really an
be,
option for people like that, right?
yeah, it depends. It depends. I think that mindset of that person is like, oh, as soon as I make more money, I'll be fine. But that's not the right way to think about it. The right way to think
Mm,
about it is you need to get profitable from where you're at right now. Because if you're not profitable based on the $10,000 a month versus the 20, then you're going to have the same problem if it's 20,000 that you're bringing in and you're 40,000 in expenses. So once they get right with the fact that they have to work with what they have now, then we can drill down and see, well, what has to change. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to reduce their expenses. In other words, we have to find, remember how I said pay yourself first? So in this
right,
$10,000 example, I want like business owners to make at least 15% profit. So on that 10 grand, 1,500 gets taken off the top. Now we
right,
have $8,500 to work with.
right.
Then we look at those $20,000 of expenses and we begin to say, is this good? Is this good? Is this good? Is this good? And most of the time I'll find a bunch of expenses that don't make at least 3 times their money. That's what I view as a good investment in your business if you can make 3 times your money. So we'll take a look at those expenses. We'll kill, I'm making it up, 4 of them, and we'll double up on 2 of them.
Right.
You follow me? And then
Yep.
we might increase one of them. Like let's just say it's sponsoring events. But we might sponsor more events, but we might fire 4 VAs or assistants or whatever it is.
Right.
Then we'll look at the sales number and we're like, okay, well, how can we make more money on the sales part without spending more in expenses? That could be simply raising prices. That could be extending the client cycle. That could be offering packages. It could be doing affiliates. I mean, like
Right.
all of that stuff. But it takes this person, they have to get their head out of the sand. And at this point is when they're like, okay, cool, I got it. And they start to really think and they get creative. And most of them come up with figuring out how they're going to do it.
So that takes us quite naturally into the next part of the question for me, which is, particularly for those we've got, I think in many ways we have two types of people, which is the entrepreneurial thinker who is a risk, they embrace risk, and then the CFO type, not truth, but CFO type, who is a little more risk adverse. Um, with what you do and how you understand this, how do you help people to understand how to take risks? Because
Yeah.
there's understanding risk from a financial point of view, and I don't know that's your specialty.
Yeah. Well, I think let's talk first for business owners because it's a little bit more of my wheelhouse. I
Sure.
think so many of us in life, we think that we have to get in the deep end of the pool and do like a
Hmm.
massive cannonball.
Right.
Like we got to be like Richard Branson and get in a hot air balloon and like go to the moon and like make it all happen. But I don't agree with that. I agree that we need to put on our money floaties and get in the shallow end of the pool and take little risks all day long. And
Okay,
then
tell us what
look
you
at
mean by that. That's really interesting. Little
yeah,
risks all day long.
yes. So we could spend um, $25,000 on some new business initiative, and that might be, let's say, in the deep end of the pool. But where can we spend $1,000 on something, or whatever? You get the
Yeah,
comparison in terms of
of
numbers.
course.
Where can we spend less money and look at the data and see if it works or not? And if we identify that 3-to-1 rate of return on what we're investing in, and that rate of return for new people has got to come back within a month. For seasoned business owners, it could be 6 months to a year. But let's take small risks and look and see if it works. So many people don't even track their ROI on investing. They just don't. Their head is in the sand. So number one, it's take small risks. So, I mean, a simple example would be people fly to conferences and trade shows and spend thousands of dollars on that.
Right.
And that might be a big risk for them. A smaller risk might be to sponsor a networking breakfast in their own city where they live. No flight, no hotel. That's an example of it. Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing. So, okay, so they do that. They sponsor the next, meeting or whatever it is. They spend $1,000 on doing that, and the measure of ROI is, well, how many people contacted as a result of that breakfast, and let's say it's none. And then, of course, the breakfast meeting will say, well, it was only one sponsor, only one meeting. You got to do a dozen of those. And so, for people to remember your name. So it becomes this, even a short-term investment becomes a long-term investment for waiting for the ROI. And now we've spent the 10 grand that we might have spent going to the conference and shaking the right hands and meeting the right people. So, it becomes an easy way to argue both sides is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think I see where you're coming from, but what happens a lot of times is people, if it doesn't work, you're out $1,000 on the breakfast. If it doesn't work at a conference, you're out 10 grand.
Right.
And then what happens to the mindset of that person is they tend to retreat, and they're like, you know what, I'm not going to market myself anymore. I'm going to like curl up in like a fetal position and suck my thumb under the covers. And I'm like, no, if 1,000 is too big, then like do 100 or like whatever, but you got to keep going with it. I just have seen that, like, I also look at financial statements. Like, if there's not cash in the business, it's very, very hard to stay in business. There's only so long, like with your example of making 10 grand and losing 20, that you can go on. At some point, you're kaputniksville.
Right. So we live very much in a world where most of us have grown up with the idea of being paid for our time. We trade time for money, and I know that you're a big fan of reoccurring revenue.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Tell us about how to grasp that.
Yeah. So recurring revenue is where, number one, you're getting paid every month or for a longer period of time from a client. And whether you have to do something and you're trading hours for dollars, that's if you have to do that in the front end to get recurring revenue, that's okay. But let me explain why recurring revenue is so good. Number one, predictability, stability, cash flow. It allows you to say no to some of the BS that you say yes to. It opens up the space for you to work and be in like a great area because you're getting paid every month.
Right.
And I mean, I know you work with lots of business owners and have lots of execs on your show. Let's just talk about the value of a business that has recurring revenue. It's like huge. It's like at least 2 or 3 times it's worth more that have recurring revenue than a business where you get paid once and you got to go find the next person and so on and so forth. So both of my businesses are nearly 100% recurring revenue. I believe in it that much. I will even turn down one-off work because for me, it's like you work, you get paid, and then you're done. And it's just, I want to work with people for a longer period of time. It doesn't have to be forever, but recurring revenue is way easier to plan everything. Not to even mention taxes. Taxes can kill business owners and even corporate execs. But when you know you're getting paid a certain amount of money, it's easier to plan and it's easier to sleep at night.
Well, you're this, you're this financial strategist. Like I said, you've been on TV, lots of major networks. Is that your background? Is that your history? Is that where you come from?
No, I'm so glad that you asked that question. Like, growing up, I was like really, really into tennis, and that was my thing. And I knew that I was like an All-American on the tennis court practicing, but I never really reached my full potential in tournaments. And I think it was because of 2 things. My parents loved me, but they were like a little bit more of the critical type of people that would like you didn't hit the backhand right or something like that. And I felt a sense of uneasiness and just bad and irritated about the fact that I should have done this or I could have done this. Right. And I felt like I had to play it safe in life and business. only until I became divorced, and ultimately I remarried and I have a blended family and it's great, did I become aware that I was hiding and I wasn't really playing full out. And what I've wanted to give to people is a sense of belief and encouragement that they can get what they want, that I do believe in them, and that wherever they are, it's totally fine. And I mean, you even mentioned that to me as part of like, why am I doing this stuff with business owners to try to get them to advance and all that rather than cutting back? It's I'm healing myself as I'm trying to teach people to grow. And it's been an amazing ride and very, very rewarding. And I'm thankful, that I'm doing this stuff because it feels good. It's hard, but it's good.
So how did you go from college tennis to financial strategist? That's quite
Yeah,
the jump.
yeah.
I mean, it
I
seems like
yeah, yeah.
another reality.
I was like the kid that always liked to collect baseball cards and all that stuff, right? Comic books and all that. Like, hey, let's buy this and sell it and make money and all that. So I was always into money
You and Gary Vaynerchuk.
for sure. Like, I just loved collecting and the business end of that. And then I started like, oh, well, why don't I just invest people's money and invest my money and all of that? Then I learned I'm a financial advisor, but I'm really a therapist because like we deal with the psychology of so much money and walking people through, getting them off the plank and redirecting them and all that. So really, I took this idea of competitiveness, which I like, um, investing, which really satisfied me. And then like I just started to get a little curious around growth and business. And then the return on life kind of got me into this working with business owners and, all
But
that.
I think you said something that is profound, and maybe you're a little shy about it, generally, but I think it was profound, and I think it's insightful, and I think it's important for our viewers, our listeners to get. What you said is it's basically therapy. It's financial mindset therapy. So talk to us a little bit more about that. I know I'm probably pushing you during a call,
No, I love
and
it. I love it. I
let's,
love
let's
it.
talk a little bit more about that, because I think that is, aside from all the strategic stuff which we've talked about, let's talk about that side, the human side.
Yeah. Well, I think, for me, I'm in it. Like I go to therapy every week and work on my stuff, and it is hard. Like looking at myself, I know Jeff Walker says the most successful business owners work on themselves more than they even work on their business.
Of course.
So for me, it's a complete reframe. It's about being like, well, what do I really want and how aware am I right now? And when am I putting my head in the sand and how do I get it out of that
Right.
every day, every week? And it's very, very hard for someone that just wants to have like be the ant marching. So I'm practicing what I preach. It's very, very hard to do. And then when I'm trying to do it with clients, they need to feel like I can really connect their business money with their personal money, with what they really want out of their life. And as long as I can bring it back to what really lights them up and what really sets them on this path, they're willing to make these changes. And for me, I feel like, oh my God, I'm on top of the world. I could do this all day long and drink wine. And where's my wine? Oh, it's up there.
It's right there.
Drink,
We've got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
We've got it right
yeah,
in the
yeah,
camera's
yeah,
view.
yeah, yeah. Drink wine and be in my PJs. But yes, it's a lot of that. It's hard work. It's very rewarding. I'm in the trenches. I mean, I'm in the trenches, and it's very rewarding.
One of the things many of our viewers, listeners know is that in 1990, I had a fall literally off a mountain and got smashed up. Um, I believe that we all go through falls. We all go through experiences that are our fall. They crack us open, if you will. Mine literally cracked my head open because I needed it a little more severely than most. I'm a bit thicker than the usual person. But we all go through these falls that are there to wake us up from something and wake us up to something. What would you say was your fall, Justin? Because
Yeah.
you've talked about being a certain kind of guy and then becoming something else. What was your fall?
Yeah, my fall was for sure 100% my divorce. It was a belief that I didn't matter, that I didn't have a voice, that I didn't care, and and then ultimately that I just gave up. And that's what I woke up to. And what I've changed from that is just a more of a sense of like, okay, well, where am I right now? What am I doing to be present right now? And a lot of that has come from meditation and being aware of what's coming into my mind that I didn't even know I was dealing with. And that was by far the hardest thing for me, was to get through that.
How
Very,
did
very
that
hard.
how did that impact? Because in the context of what you're talking about, divorce is most often devastating. But one of the things that we see in the movies and in TV shows is that it's often financially devastating, particularly in the United States, with the split and lawyers and all those kinds of
Yeah.
things. And here you are, this financial guy. You went through a divorce. Did it change the way you saw money?
Um, yes, I valued money even more because part of it goes out the door. And then, what I had to realize is now I have my kids half the time, right?
Hmm.
So now, as far as, I need to get help to help me because I got 2 businesses that I'm running. That's the big thing. But what I ultimately had to learn was I needed to be very, very smart with my time, because I was the one packing lunches for my kids when they were younger. I was the one filling out these PE forms and field trip forms that I never did.
Right.
I had to do a lot of that. And I felt like on Mother's Day, no disrespect to moms, like I wanted part of Mother's Day because like I've got my kids half the time. So, of course I get Father's Day, but I had to get really, really clear on my time. And
Right.
I had to do a reframe and be like, okay, these things I now need to delegate. And then from there, I was like, okay, if I'm delegating a bunch of stuff, then I need to take this time that I'm using and be very, very aware of how I'm going to spend that and what is really important for me.
So again, we're back to this piece around clarity and knowing what matters to you. I mean, I think that, whether it's in the context of specifically leadership and purpose and the culture you have, or whether it's in the personal finances or financial corporate finances, it so much comes down to this piece of what you were saying around financial clarity.
Correct. And something just popped into my mind of that a lot of us do what we think we should do.
Mm,
And really the distinction is I don't believe in that. I think that's BS. I think
hmm
we need to do what's right for us and what we want to do rather than what everyone else is doing or what we should do, because we're not everyone else. We're our own person with our own unique set of circumstances and goals and all of that. So let's do what we want rather than what we should.
Yeah, I think that this one, I mean, it's a little sidebar here, but it's one of the great challenges of life is that we live in the world that tells us who we should be, and we have the conditioning of others in our head that tells us who we should be, and then
Hmm.
we have what's true for us at a heart and soul level. And I don't think that most people ever do more than listen to that whisper a couple of times, and then they silence that and go with what they should be, whether it's by societal conditioning, whether it's by familial conditioning, or whatever it might be, or the media. And so often we lose who we are. We
Mm.
lose, when I talk about the purpose, soulful purpose, we lose contact with that. And I don't think there's much more than a much more powerful way to be pulled away from that than family conditioning and finances, because we live in a
Hmm.
material world. And, and,
Yeah.
and I love what you're saying there about understanding that first, getting back to that piece first, because it's so easy. And again, these $10,000 millionaires, you go out and you lease the Maserati and you look like $1 million. And I get it. I get that perception is reality. I get the marketing side of that. I understand that. I truly do. But at the same time, is that lease the cost of your soul? This is a
Mm.
big, big question that so few people have the courage to answer. And that's why I'm so glad that you talked about therapy and the need to work on yourself and understand yourself. And that, in fact, What Justin does is financial therapy. It's getting to the nut there, talking about covering your nut, but the nut actually is the piece that is underneath all that is the financial therapy. Like, what do you need to look at in the money system of your own psyche that has
Yeah.
got you where you are? And we're all in it. Please understand, we're
Yeah.
all in it to some degree. And some people are in it in a way that, like, they have a great psychology around money and they were conditioned very well. And for them, creating $1 million every week is no problem, or a month is okay. That's kind of their psyche. But there are other people who that's not their psyche, and the need to look at that is a challenging piece, because the other side of it is, well, okay, I don't want to go negative, but I also don't want to be in denial. So
Yeah.
it's a very fascinating piece for me.
So what would you tell someone who has those thoughts come in? They're like, that they really want to do something, but then they're in the, oh, I shouldn't do this because society is telling me that. What would you tell those people that silence those thoughts and let them just go away and never go back and revisit them?
Well, I don't know that you can never go back and revisit a thought that is conditioned in. I think you can understand what it is. You can label it in the Buddhist sense of just go, okay, I know what that is, and stick as one of my great teachers says, put a post-it note on it and let it drift by, which I like
Hmm.
as a great metaphor. Um, but I think that ultimately we all have to come down to what is true to my soul. For me, the question is, the truth of the matter is, some people believe in a God, and a God that keeps accounts, and is judging you right, wrong, good, bad, etc. Some people don't believe in that. They believe in the Dharma, where you're modeling, you hold yourself accountable. But the truth, for me, not the truth,
Hmm.
but for me, the truth is that whether if I don't know if there's a God, nobody actually knows. We all have belief, I don't know if there's no God. I don't know that either. But what I do know is that I have to hold me accountable. And the question in that holding myself accountable is to ask the question, if I do this, does it evolve or squash my soul? And to But you can't answer that question without a depth of self-knowledge, as you quite
Hmm.
clearly pointed out. You can answer that question without a depth of self-knowledge, and you'll always justify whatever the hell you want to do. But to actually, sure, well, I could kill this person. It's going to
Hmm.
involve my soul. I could spend my children's college fund because it's going to involve you can justify anything you want. But when you actually have got the level of self-knowledge that it takes, and so few have the courage to do, then it's a very different question. And I think that uh, that's where people need a
Yeah.
financial therapist. I think it's a
Yeah.
great question.
I mean,
So,
I could go on and on with you on this topic. It's amazing. And
mhm.
I think it's big. I mean, it's been in my life a lot. I see it with my clients and with just my peers. And I think it's important. It's important
Mhm.
to really be aware and to see how far down you want to go and deep you want to go with what you're thinking about.
Yeah, and oftentimes, as you well point out there, I mean, oftentimes, I think we want to judge people based on our own depth, and that's a challenge. So 3 feet might be very deep for somebody who's never been in the water. And the fact that you're a deep sea diver, you can judge that, but you can't judge it because at some point you were 3 feet. And looking
Correct.
at looking at everybody from their perspective, which is to step into empathetic positioning and grasp that everybody's doing what they can. Sure, you can give them a shove and push them a couple of feet in, but ultimately, courage is subjective, and the willingness to go to that depth, whatever that depth is, that can be very, very challenging for any of us, for absolutely any of us.
For sure.
You talked about your fall and being being that's the place that sort of changed you around. But what was the turning point? How did that turn? How did it change your leadership or your business philosophy as a person? Because I think we're all driven by a personal
Yeah.
philosophy.
Yeah, I think it was a reframe for me that it was okay to have a voice, and it was okay to be seen as a leader, and it was
Mm,
okay to stand up on top and have a few people be like, you know what, we don't like him. Because I was always afraid that I wanted everyone to like me. But
right.
in life and in business, sometimes you have to be a little bit polarizing to have a
Hmm.
voice and to have a message and to take a stand for something. So
Yeah.
I went from not wanting to have a voice to trying to be okay. It's still a work in progress for me to have a
And all of
voice,
us.
and yeah, and to have people be like, oh, this guy's terrible, and like I have to be okay with it and be like, you know what, it's none of my business what they think. I'm not for them. I'm here for these people, because in doing this, Dove, I've seen what I've been able to do for people, and I've basically been able to affect their lives in a positive way. So for me, it's about standing out and being okay with criticism and
Right.
negativity that's not right for me, that I don't want to deal with.
And that's interesting there, Justin, because I know that in our original conversation, part of my concern was, okay, how are we bringing this to leaders? And it is that human side of you. It's not just the bean counter, it's the human side of you. It's the willingness to look at
For
yourself,
sure.
which is the part that you bring to the people that you serve that I think is uh, vital. And in saying that, I believe that in order for people to be successful, we have a lot of negative connotation on the word obsessed. But the most successful people in the world are obsessed. Tell us something you're obsessed with. Something that you
Oh
can't
my
resist
God.
a conversation about. If it's going on over there and you're at the party and you have to just you
Oh my
get
God.
pulled to that part of
I love talking business. I love it. Like I can talk about business with anyone about anything they're trying to do. Any sort of business strategy, wanting to grow. Maybe you're hiring this, you're starting a new business, you're testing something. Whatever it is, I love talking business, and then the strategy, particularly the number strategy, but the strategy overall on what you're going to do to try to grow and advance. For me, that's it.
right. And of course, that obsession is leaked into everything that you do because it
Man, I
does.
love it. It's like feeds my soul.
So, what scares you? What keeps you up at night
Um,
besides North Korea?
You know what? Yeah. You know what? I'm literally like, you really want to know? This is it.
Yeah, we really want to know.
This whole thing for me about mortality, and then I'm middle aged and I'm not going to live forever. Like my parents are alive, but they're not going to live forever. And, it's hard. It's like I'm
Hmm.
taking care of a little bit of them, and I got my own kids. I'm that sandwich. So it's really, what keeps me up at night is like, wow, wow, here I am now. you know you know I need to make the best of what I have, and really live. And it's sometimes it's like, my son just started high school. I'm like, oh my God. I remember like being in the hospital with him doing that like the first day he was born. Now my kid's going to be driving. Like, this is insane. So for me, I think it's ultimately, it's my mortality, and the age of my parents and my kids and stuff like that. And then my challenge, Dove, is being in the present.
What do you mean by that?
That,
Tell us what you mean by
but
that.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm 45. I can't really change the past or the future. Here I am right now. It's 12 o'clock. What am I going to do? Like, what do I want?
Hmm.
Right. And that's where I need to get my mind back into, well, here I am right now. But what keeps me up at night are those things.
Hmm. So tell us what you do about that. What is
I
your
think,
strategy?
I think for me, it's just to explore it and to just talk about it. That's really, for me right now, it's just that. It's just to explore and be like, okay, well, what am I going to do about that? And one of the things for me is when I asked myself, if I had 5 to 10 years to live, what would I want to do?
Exactly.
And some of that was a little bit of the travel. So I'm going to go on this killer trip in October, to places that I've never been. One of them being Israel, and to go and explore and just it be an adventure. And when you don't have like a phone or anything, and you're just like exploring, to me that's timeless. You're just there and you're doing your thing. So for me, it's travel and fun and adventure.
Well, talking of travel, we haven't brought this up, but tell us about the Godfather Connection.
Yes, yes. So I lived in Italy for 2 years, and like I watched. like Godfather when I was a kid. I'm like, oh my God, I love this movie. Like I could hear the music playing in my head. Like I love the food. Like I love Al Pacino, like, Marlon Brando, De Niro. They're all great. And I just had this passion for Italy, and I went there and just like totally immersed myself, learned the language, explored. And that was so much fun that I had. Like I'm actually going to go back there again on the front end of my trip to Israel, because for me, that's the being present part of just living and doing what I love and being in the moment. So that's my connection to Italy. Like I speak the language. I pretty much can speak it. I understand it. I love red wine, and all that good stuff. So
You went there. You went there in your 20s, right?
yes,
How did it change you? And particularly what I'm really interested in, because of what you do, how did it influence the way you saw money? Because in my experience, Italians, in fact, Latin Europeans, see money very differently than Americans.
yes, yes. So how it affected me was flat out my view of the meaning of money,
Mm.
and how I think of it. And for me, it's all about experiences. It's nothing having to do with being tangible. It's all about experiences and using it as a tool to give me experiences that I want. Because at the end of the time, right, when we're all like, you know,
Whatever we are.
yeah, like we're going to look back, and it's really our life is a collection of experiences. And we're going to want to make sure that we did as many of those as we could have done. So for me, that's what my living in Italy was about. It was about an experience. It was about waking me up to experience,
Hmm.
having great experiences, and new and doing new things, because I was so stuck in this routine and this sense of monotony.
But it's interesting because I'm. Did you get divorced in your 20s?
No,
Right.
no, I
So
got
it's fascinating for me that you
divorced.
went to
Yeah,
Italy, you
way
thought it
later.
was all about experiences, and then you went through the divorce and you realized it's all about the experiences. So it's fascinating because it's not just you, Justin, it's all of us. I've said many times that there are moments in our life that are what I call um, pivotal points, that something happens and there's a pivotal moment. But that's not where things change. It's very often a long time later before it actually sinks in. So you got in Italy in your 20s, oh my God, it's about experiences, blah, blah, blah. And then you go into your life and not you, but we go into our lives, we go into the shoulds of the world. And then something else happens that brings us back to a fundamental learning we had. It's a
Yeah.
fascinating piece for me.
Yes, the thing is, we probably weren't ready for that when we were 20.
Ta-da! Or
Maybe
when we're
if,
50. We sometimes
yeah, I
don't,
mean,
like,
yeah.
oh, I get it now, I'm
So,
70.
yeah, that's the whole thing. I wasn't.
Right. So if you got to, one of the questions that I love to bring up is that very often on shows, it's become kind of a cliche thing is people say, what's the best advice you would give to your 20-year-old self? I, being me, like to go the other way, which is this. If you get to time travel and you get to move forward in time and you get to meet your 70-year-old Justin, A, where is he? As the moment we walk up and you and I go up and we meet him, where is he? Where is he sitting? Where is he standing? Where is he geographically? Where is he in his life? And what is the best advice that he's giving to you?
It's so funny that you say that, Dove, because I run a group of women business owners, and I actually asked them that same question to do that same thing.
Nice.
And I said, I want you to 10 times it, and then I want you to write a letter to yourself, pretending you're 20 years old or coming back to today, the things that you need to do. And I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. So number one, I would write a letter that basically says to myself something like, be aware of what you want and continue to go for it. I would write a letter about the fact that if I'm not teaching, I'm stagnant, because
Hmm.
I love teaching. Um, I would probably be somewhere in California, and I'd probably have like a house in like New York and maybe San Francisco, something like that. And I'd
Hmm.
be traveling like, let's say, a month or two out of the year, but I would still be teaching at 70, like 100%. I will be teaching something having to do with business and money because it lights me up.
That's fabulous, mate. Well, it's been great having you here. I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed
Thank you.
being on here.
You're amazing. I mean,
Thank you, sir.
I hope that you continue to do just great work, and it's been great to be along for the ride. It's been a great experience.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I really do believe that there's some real gems in here. And I say this on all the shows, but particularly there are certain shows that stand out. And I really hope that people will not just listen, but listen back and take notes and pay attention, because one of the things that we talk so much about is there's all kinds of leadership shows and business shows out there, but talking about what's at the heart and soul of business, and then putting that into the practicality, in this case of understanding money, it is vitally important for people to understand. Justin, please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you, what it is you do, and how to tap into the resources. And I know you have many that you would like to make available.
Yeah, they could go to this site, it's word, cashflowgift.com. And in there, I will teach you a little bit more about money management, the skills that you need, how to think about it, some steps that you can take.
Cashflowgift.com?
Correct.
Fabulous. Cashflowgift.com. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. That's really awesome, and we will make sure that we post that so everybody can get that. It's been a real pleasure, a real honor having you here, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dov. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you, dear listener, for tuning in and for staying tuned and making sure that you share the show with everybody that you know. Remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive. These fast-growing companies often find a point where they realize they're spending an absolute fortune on attracting, training, and developing talent, only to have them leave them at just a crazy rate. So if you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only have them leave you before you get that ROI, then reach out to us. Come and talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into the sole purpose of your company. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you the concrete soft skills to get you to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also, remember to stop by matrix.fullmontyleadership.com to get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool, valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you for being a regular listener to us. Full Monty Leadership. Get over to the matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. Until next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying, stay curious, my friend, stay curious about the stories you're telling yourself around money and how you can unite your money, your business, and your life. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.